The city of Chicago gleamed beneath a blanket of winter stars. On the 82nd floor of the Harrington Technologies building, glass walls stretched from floor to ceiling, offering a view that made most visitors feel like they were floating above the world. Vincent Harrington stood at the center of his control room, surrounded by glowing monitors that displayed the pulse of his technology empire. At 42 years old, he had built everything from nothing. His dark hair showed hints of silver at the temples, and his sharp jaw reflected the determination that had carried him to the top. Tonight, he wore an expensive navy suit, though his tie hung loose around his neck after 14 straight hours of work. Vincent had earned his reputation as the iron mind of Chicago. People said he could see opportunities where others saw only risk. His company, Harrington Technologies, had revolutionized cloud computing systems for hospitals, banks, and government agencies across the nation. He controlled billions of dollars in contracts, employed thousands of people, and lived in a penthouse that overlooked Lake Michigan. Success had become his identity, but success had also made him lonely. He rarely spoke to anyone outside of business meetings. His days blended into endless streams of data, projections, and quarterly reports. When everything collapsed, the first warning came at 11:47 p.m. A soft beep echoed through the control room, then another, faster this time. Vincent's eyes snapped to the main screen where red text began crawling across the display. System breach detected. His fingers flew across the keyboard, trying to lock down the servers, but every command he entered came back with the same cruel response: access denied. Within minutes, the entire network began crashing. Years of data vanished like smoke. Bank accounts connected to company funds showed zero balances. The $8 billion merger with a European tech giant, scheduled to close tomorrow morning, dissolved into nothing. Vincent felt his chest tighten. Pain shot through his head as he gripped the edge of the desk. Blood rushed to his temples, pounding like a drum. He had spent 15 years building this company, sacrificing relationships, health, and any semblance of normal life. Now it was all disappearing in front of his eyes. He slammed his fist against the desk, and a sharp crack echoed through the room. Blood seeped from his knuckles where the skin had split, but he barely noticed. The physical pain was nothing compared to the hollow ache spreading through his chest. Through the glass walls, Chicago continued glowing, indifferent to his crisis. The city never stopped, never cared, never noticed when someone fell. Vincent stared at his reflection in the window. He saw a man who had forgotten how to be human, who had traded connection for control, and who now stood alone at the moment of his greatest catastrophe. The office was silent, except for the hum of dying servers and the faint sound of wheels rolling across the marble floor outside. An unexpected voice. Vincent almost ignored the sound. Probably just the night cleaning, crew making their rounds. He wanted to yell at whoever it was to leave him alone, to let him drown in peace. But then a voice broke through the silence. "Excuse me, sir? Are you all right?" The accent was soft, carrying hints of Latin America mixed with years of living in the United States. He turned slowly. Standing in the doorway was a young woman pushing a cleaning cart. The fluorescent light from the hallway created a glow around her silhouette. She wore a simple navy uniform with the building maintenance logo stitched on the pocket. Her dark hair was pulled back in a ponytail, though a few strands had escaped to frame her face. Her eyes, a warm brown that reminded him of autumn leaves, looked at him with genuine concern rather than pity. The name tag pinned to her uniform read Sofia Martinez. Vincent managed a bitter laugh. "I appreciate the concern, but I'm just watching my entire life burn to the ground. Nothing you need to worry about." Sofia stepped closer, her eyes moving from his face to the screens flashing error messages behind him. She set down her mop and walked to the edge of his desk, studying the monitors with an intensity that surprised him. "That looks like a coordinated cyberattack," she said quietly. Ransomware injection with a secondary data wipe protocol. Vincent froze. What did you just say? The hidden expert, Sofia, met his eyes without flinching. I said it looks like someone deliberately destroyed your system using multiple attack vectors. This was not random. Before Vincent could respond, she continued. I used to work in cybersecurity. 5 years ago, I was a senior analyst at Data Shield Solutions in Boston. I specialized in preventing exactly this kind of attack. Her voice was calm, factual, as if she were discussing the weather rather than his collapsing empire. Vincent felt his mind racing. How does a cybersecurity expert end up cleaning offices? He wanted to ask, but held back. Something in her expression told him the answer involved pain she was not ready to share. Instead, he asked the only question that mattered right now. Can you fix this? Sofia looked at the screens again, her fingers already moving toward the keyboard. I can try, but I need you to trust me. Vincent had built his fortune on calculated risks and careful analysis. He had never made an important decision based on gut feeling alone. Yet something about this woman, standing in her cleaning uniform, with confidence radiating from every word, made him nod. He pushed his chair toward her and stepped back. Show me what you can do. The night of miracles. Sofia sat down and her hands began dancing across the keyboard with a speed and precision that left Vincent speechless. Command windows opened and closed. Lines of code streamed across the screen faster than he could follow. She navigated through the corrupted system like someone walking through their childhood home in the dark, knowing exactly where everything was without needing light. Her breathing was steady, her focus absolute. The rest of the world seemed to disappear for her. Vincent watched, mesmerized. He had spent decades in the technology industry, had hired the best programmers money could buy, yet he had never seen anyone work with this level of instinctive mastery. Minutes turned into an hour. Sofia never stopped, never hesitated. Her fingers flew across the keys while her eyes tracked patterns invisible to anyone else. Slowly, impossibly, the red error messages began turning blue. Hidden backup files emerged from deep within the system architecture. Data that had seemed permanently lost started flowing back into the servers. Vincent felt something he had not experienced in years. Hope. Not the calculated optimism he used in board meetings, but real raw hope that maybe, just maybe, everything was not lost after all. Sofia leaned back in the chair and exhaled slowly. She turned to face him, a tired smile playing at the corners of her mouth. Your system is stabilizing. The core data is intact. Someone tried to make you think everything was destroyed, but they actually just hid it very well. Vincent stared at the screens, watching as his company came back to life before his eyes. Blue indicators replaced red warnings. Financial accounts reappeared. The European merger documents, which had seemed like worthless paper an hour ago, now glowed on the screen with all signatures and terms intact. He looked at Sofia, this woman in a cleaning uniform who had just saved his empire, and felt something shift deep inside his chest. For the first time in 15 years, Vincent Harrington realized that the most valuable things in life could not be calculated, predicted, or controlled. Sometimes salvation came from the most unexpected places, wearing the most unlikely disguise, reminding you that humanity's greatest strength had always been the courage to help a stranger in the dark. The first light of morning crept across Chicago's skyline, painting the clouds in shades of pink and gold. Vincent Harrington stood by the massive window on the 82nd floor, watching the city wake up beneath him. Behind him, the control room hummed with restored life. Every monitor displayed steady blue lights, every system running smoothly, as if the nightmare of last night had never happened. But Vincent knew better. The attack had been real, and so had the miracle that followed. He turned to look at Sofia Martinez, who sat quietly in the chair, her hands folded in her lap. Her Navy uniform was wrinkled from hours of work, and exhaustion showed in the gentle shadows under her eyes. Yet there was something beautiful in the way the morning light touched her face, illuminating the strength and grace she carried without even realizing it. 2 paper cups of coffee sat on the desk between them, both cold and untouched. Vincent had ordered them hours ago from the all-night cafe downstairs, but neither had remembered to drink. The bitter aroma still lingered in the air, mixing with the metallic scent of electronics and the faint trace of cleaning solution from Sofia's cart, which still waited by the door. Vincent cleared his throat, breaking the comfortable silence that had settled between them. "I need to know something. How does someone with your skills end up working as a cleaning lady?" Sofia looked down at her hands. The question hung in the air like morning mist, delicate and impossible to ignore. The story behind the uniform Sofia took a deep breath before speaking. Her voice was soft but steady, carrying the weight of memories she had learned to carry alone. 3 years ago, I had everything. A career I loved, an apartment in Boston overlooking the harbor, respect from my colleagues. I was engaged to a man named Thomas Chen. He worked in finance and we were planning a summer wedding. Her eyes grew distant, focused on something only she could see. Then my mother got sick, cancer, stage 4. She lived in San Antonio and she had no one else. My father passed when I was 12 and I'm an only child. So I quit my job, broke off my engagement, and moved back home to take care of her. Vincent listened without interrupting, feeling a tightness in his chest that had nothing to do with business or money. Sofia continued, her fingers tracing invisible patterns on the armrest. I spent 2 years watching her fight a battle she could not win. I held her hand through chemotherapy, read to her when she was too weak to hold a book, and told her stories about the life I would build after she got better. We both knew she would not get better, but hope was all we had left. When she passed, I had nothing. No career, no savings, no home. I had spent everything on her medical bills. The insurance covered some, but not nearly enough. She looked up at Vincent, her brown eyes reflecting the golden sunrise. I moved to Chicago because I needed a fresh start somewhere nobody knew me. I applied for cybersecurity positions, but my resume had a 2-year gap that nobody wanted to explain away. Companies wanted recent experience, continuous employment, history, proof that I had stayed current with technology. They did not want to hear about sacrifice or family or love. So I took the only job I could get, cleaning offices at night, staying invisible, trying to survive while I figured out how to rebuild my life. Vincent felt something crack open inside his chest. He had spent 15 years believing that success meant rising above everyone else. That strength meant never showing weakness. That winning required stepping over those who fell. Now he stood in front of a woman who had sacrificed everything for love, who had fallen from grace not through failure but through courage, and who possessed more genuine strength than anyone he had ever met in a boardroom. A new position, a new challenge. Vincent made a decision in that moment, one that came from instinct rather than calculation. Starting today, you work for me, not as a cleaner, as the head of cybersecurity for Harrington Technologies. You report directly to me, and your salary will reflect the value you bring to this company. Sofia's eyes widened. Vincent, I appreciate what you're trying to do, but you can't just create a position because you feel grateful. Your board of directors will never approve hiring someone with a 2-year gap and no recent corporate experience. Vincent crossed his arms, a slight smile playing at his lips. I own 51% of this company. The board advises, but I decide. And I have never made a better business decision than this one. You saved my empire in 3 hours. My entire IT department could not have done what you did in 3 days. Before Sofia could respond, Vincent walked to his desk and pulled out a leather folder. Inside was a contract he had drafted on his tablet while she worked, printed on the executive floor's private printer. He placed it in front of her. "Read it. Take your time. If you want to negotiate terms, we negotiate. If you want to walk away, I'll understand. But I need you to know something. Last night, you did not just save my company. You reminded me what real competence looks like, and what real character means." Sofia picked up the contract with trembling hands. Her eyes scanned the terms, and Vincent watched her expression shift from disbelief to cautious hope. The salary was generous but not insulting. The benefits were comprehensive. The position came with respect, authority, and the resources to build a security system that could withstand any attack. The ghost in the system. 2 hours later, after Sofia had signed the contract and changed into professional clothes, Vincent had ordered from an all-night department store. She returned to the control room. Vincent had arranged for her old uniform to be cleaned and stored in his private office, a reminder of where she had come from and what she had overcome. Now Sofia wore dark slacks and a crisp white blouse, her hair still pulled back but styled more professionally. She looked like she belonged in this world of glass and technology, yet she carried herself with the same quiet confidence she had shown while pushing a cleaning cart. Vincent watched her settle into the main security terminal, her fingers already flying across the keyboard as she began a comprehensive system audit. He was about to leave her to work when Sofia suddenly froze. Her eyes locked onto something on the screen, and her face went pale. "Vincent, come here. Now." He crossed the room in 3 long strides, leaning over her shoulder to see what had caught her attention. On the screen was a section of code he did not recognize, a string of characters that looked out of place among the restored data. "What am I looking at?" Vincent asked. Sofia's voice was tight with tension. "This is the signature code from last night's attack, the specific identifier the hacker used to trigger the system collapse. I thought I had traced it to an external source, but I was wrong." She typed rapidly, opening additional windows and running diagnostic traces. Vincent watched the screens fill with information that made his blood run cold. The attack code did not come from outside the building. It originated from an internal access point right here on the 82nd floor. Someone inside your company, someone with high-level access to your personal systems, orchestrated the entire attack. Vincent felt the floor shift beneath him. An inside job. Someone he trusted, someone he worked with every day, had tried to destroy everything he had built. Who? His voice came out harder than he intended, edged with barely controlled fury. Sofia shook her head, still typing. "I do not know yet. The signature is masked behind multiple proxy layers, but whoever did this knew exactly what they were doing. They knew the system architecture, the backup protocols, the security gaps. This was not some random hacker. This was someone familiar with every aspect of Harrington Technologies." The investigation begins. Vincent paced the room, his mind racing through possibilities. He had a small circle of executives with access to his floor. Robert Finnegan, his chief financial officer, had been with him for 10 years. Jennifer Wu, his chief operating officer, had helped him secure the European merger. And then there was Damon Westbrook, his business partner and co-founder, the man who had stood beside him when Harrington Technologies was nothing more than an idea scribbled on a napkin in a coffee shop. No, Vincent thought. Not Damon. They had built this company together, had survived the lean years when failure seemed certain, had celebrated every victory side by side. Damon was more than a partner. He was family. Sofia's voice pulled him from his thoughts. "Vincent, I need access to everyone's work logs, email records, and system activity for the past 3 months. I know that feels invasive, but if we want to find who did this, we need to see patterns. We need to understand who had the knowledge, opportunity, and motive to destroy your company." Vincent nodded slowly. "Do whatever you need to do. I want answers." As Sofia began pulling files and running analysis programs, Vincent walked back to the window. Chicago stretched out below him, millions of people starting their day, unaware that somewhere in this building a traitor was hiding. The morning sun felt less warm now, the golden light tainted by shadows of betrayal. Sofia worked through the morning, her focus absolute. Vincent brought her food from the executive dining room, which she barely touched. He watched her sort through mountains of data, creating flowcharts and timelines that mapped the digital footprints of everyone who had accessed the system. By noon, a pattern began to emerge. One person had accessed the core security protocols 17 times in the past month, always late at night when most employees had gone home. The same person had downloaded encrypted files containing the complete system architecture 3 weeks before the attack. And that same person had been in the building last night, their security badge registering entry to the 82nd floor at 10:30 p.m., 30 minutes before the attack began. The name that changed everything. Sofia pulled up the personnel file attached to the suspicious activity. When the photo appeared on the screen, Vincent felt his world tilt on its axis. The face staring back at him belonged to Damon Westbrook. His best friend, his business partner, the man he had trusted with everything. "No," Vincent whispered. "There has to be a mistake." Sofia's expression was filled with sympathy, but her voice remained professional. "I ran the trace 4 times. The digital signature, the access patterns, the timing, everything points to him. I'm sorry, Vincent." Vincent sank into a chair, his hands covering his face. Why would he do this? We built this company together. We shared everything, the risks, the rewards, the dreams. What could possibly motivate him to destroy it all? Sofia hesitated before answering. Sometimes people's motivations have nothing to do with logic. Maybe he felt overshadowed. Maybe he wanted to prove he could succeed without you. Maybe someone offered him something you could not. We will not know until we confront him. Vincent looked up, his gray eyes hard as steel. Then we confront him. Today. But I need proof, Sofia. Concrete evidence that will hold up not just in a corporate board meeting but in a court of law. If Damon did this, he does not just lose his position. He faces criminal charges for fraud, corporate sabotage, and attempted theft of billions in assets. Sofia nodded. Give me 2 more hours. I'll build a case so solid that even the best lawyers in the country could not defend him. As Sofia returned to her work, Vincent stood and walked to his private office. The space was decorated with photos from Harrington Technologies' history. There, in a silver frame on his desk, was a picture from 12 years ago. Vincent and Damon, both younger and full of naive optimism, holding a bottle of cheap champagne to celebrate their first major contract. They were smiling, arms around each other's shoulders, looking like brothers who would conquer the world together. Vincent picked up the frame, staring at the faces of 2 men who no longer existed. One had lost his way in ambition and greed. The other had been too blind to see it happening. He set the photo face down on the desk. Some things, once broken, could never be restored, and some betrayals cut too deep to forgive. The afternoon sun hung heavy over Chicago, casting long shadows. Across the 82nd floor of Harrington Technologies, Vincent Harrington stood in his private conference room, a space designed for the most critical negotiations and decisions. The walls were soundproof glass, offering privacy while maintaining the illusion of transparency. Today, that irony was not lost on him. Beside him stood Sofia Martinez, no longer wearing the uniform that had defined her just 12 hours ago. She held a tablet containing the evidence they had gathered, her expression calm but focused. Vincent had seen that look on the faces of soldiers preparing for battle, a quiet determination born from knowing the fight ahead would be difficult but necessary. The door opened and Damon Westbrook walked in, his confident stride faltering slightly, when he saw Sofia standing beside Vincent. Damon was 44 with sandy brown hair styled perfectly, wearing a charcoal suit that probably cost more than Sofia had earned in 3 months of cleaning offices. His blue eyes, usually warm and friendly, flickered with something Vincent had never noticed before: calculation, suspicion, fear masked behind a smile. "Vincent, good to see you recovered from last night's crisis. I heard through the grapevine that we had a system scare. Everything resolved now?" Damon's voice was smooth, practiced, the tone of a man accustomed to controlling conversations. Vincent gestured to the chair across from him. "Sit down, Damon. We need to talk." Damon's smile tightened, but he took the seat, crossing one leg over the other in a posture of casual confidence. "Sure. What's on your mind? And who's your friend?" "This is Sofia Martinez," Vincent said quietly. "As of this morning, she's our new head of cybersecurity. She's also the person who saved the company last night when someone tried to destroy it from the inside." The color drained from Damon's face, though he tried to hide it behind a confused expression. "From the inside? Vincent, what are you talking about? Last night was a standard cyber attack, unfortunate but manageable. These things happen in our industry." The evidence unfolds. Sofia stepped forward, placing the tablet on the table between them. She tapped the screen and a series of documents appeared, each one damning in its clarity. "Actually, Mr. Westbrook, it was not standard at all. The attack was carefully orchestrated by someone with intimate knowledge of our security architecture, someone who spent weeks preparing, someone who accessed the core systems 17 times in the past month, always between midnight and 3 in the morning." She swiped to the next screen. "Someone who downloaded encrypted files containing our complete system blueprint 3 weeks ago. Someone whose security badge shows they entered this floor at 10:30 p.m. last night. Exactly 30 minutes before the attack began." Damon's jaw tightened. His hands gripped the armrests of his chair. That could be anyone with executive access. "You are making dangerous accusations based on circumstantial evidence." Sofia remained calm, her voice steady as she continued. "The digital signature embedded in the attack code matches your personal workstation's unique identifier. The proxy servers you used to mask your location were registered to offshore accounts that trace back to shell companies you established 6 months ago. And the ransomware you deployed contains coding patterns that match 3 previous projects you personally developed for our security testing division. Damon, this is not circumstantial. This is a documented trail of deliberate sabotage." Vincent watched his former friend, looking for any sign of the man he thought he knew. Instead, he saw a stranger wearing a familiar face. Damon's expression shifted from denial to cold calculation. When he spoke again, his voice had lost all pretense of warmth. "You have no idea what it's been like, Vincent. Standing in your shadow. For 12 years, watching you take credit for ideas I developed, seeing clients praise your vision when I did all the technical work. This company should have been mine. We started as equals, but you treated me like an employee, a supporting character in the great Vincent Harrington story." The bitterness in Damon's words cut through the air like broken glass. The truth behind the betrayal. Vincent leaned forward, his voice low and dangerous. "So you tried to destroy everything we built because your ego couldn't handle sharing success? You were willing to ruin thousands of employees, sabotage billions in contracts, and commit federal crimes because you felt underappreciated?" Damon stood abruptly, his composure cracking. "You don't understand. I was approached 6 months ago by Zenith Corporation. They offered me $70 million and a CEO position if I could deliver them Harrington Technologies' client list and proprietary algorithms. But they wanted the company weakened first, destabilized, so they could acquire it for pennies on the dollar during bankruptcy proceedings. I would have gotten everything I deserved, everything you denied me for years." Sofia's voice cut through the tension. "So you plan to crash the company, sell our secrets, and walk away rich while thousands lost their jobs. And you justified this as professional ambition?" Damon turned on her, his face flushed with anger. "Who are you to judge me? You're a cleaning lady playing dress-up in an office where you don't belong." Vincent's hand slammed down on the table with enough force to rattle the tablet. "Don't you dare speak to her that way. Sofia has more integrity in one finger than you've shown in your entire life. She saved this company not for money or recognition, but because she saw someone who needed help and had the courage to act. That's something you stopped understanding a long time ago. The price of betrayal." The room fell silent, except for the hum of the air conditioning and the distant sounds of Chicago traffic far below. Damon seemed to deflate, the fight draining out of him as he realized the game was over. Vincent stood, walking to the window to compose himself before continuing. "I've already contacted our legal team and the FBI. They're building a case for corporate espionage, fraud, attempted theft of trade secrets, and sabotage. You're looking at federal prison time, Damon. Years of your life gone. And for what? Money you'll never get to spend. A title that means nothing when you're wearing an orange jumpsuit." Damon sank back into his chair, his head in his hands. "I never wanted it to go this far. I thought the attack would just scare you, make the board lose confidence, create an opening for me to take control. I didn't think it would actually destroy everything." Sofia's voice was cold. "That's the problem with revenge and greed. You never think about the consequences until it's too late. You never consider the real people affected by your actions. You just see what you want and convince yourself that any method of getting it is justified." Two security officers appeared at the door, summoned by the silent alert Vincent had triggered minutes earlier. They entered quietly, professional in their movements. Vincent turned to face his former partner one last time. "Damon Westbrook, you're terminated effective immediately. Your access to all systems is revoked, your stock options are forfeit under the morality clause in your contract, and you're banned from these premises. These officers will escort you out. If you attempt to contact any clients, employees, or partners of Harrington Technologies, we'll add witness tampering to the charges." Damon stood slowly, his shoulders slumped in defeat. As the officers moved to either side of him, he looked at Vincent with something that might have been regret. "I'm sorry, Vincent, I really am. For what it's worth, you built something incredible here. I just couldn't see past my own bitterness to appreciate it." Rebuilding trust after Damon was escorted away, Vincent stood alone with Sofia in the conference room. The silence felt different now, not heavy with tension, but open with possibility. Vincent turned to her, seeing not just the woman who had saved his company, but the person who had reminded him what true strength looked like. "I need to apologize to you," he said quietly. "For what?" Sofia asked, genuine confusion in her eyes. "For almost letting someone like Damon define what success means, for building a company culture that valued results over people, that measured worth in titles and corner offices rather than character and compassion. You showed me last night that the most important things in life can't be calculated on a spreadsheet." Sofia smiled softly. "You didn't know. Sometimes we get so focused on building something big that we forget why we started building in the first place. The question is, what do you do now?" Vincent walked to the window, looking out at the city that had watched him rise, nearly fall, and rise again. "I rebuild, but differently this time. I want to create a company where people like you don't have to hide their talents behind a mop and cart, where 2-year gaps in employment are understood as life experience rather than failure, where success is measured not just in profit margins, but in the lives we improve and the integrity we maintain." He turned back to face her. "And I need your help to do it. Not just as head of cybersecurity, but as my partner in reshaping what Harrington Technologies stands for." Sofia's eyes widened. "Vincent, I've been in this position for less than a day. You're talking about fundamental, cultural change across an entire corporation. That's a years-long process requiring board approval, stakeholder buy-in, and resources I'm not sure we have. Vincent smiled, the first genuine smile Sofia had seen on his face. Then it's a good thing. I just opened up a co-founder position. The board meets next week. I'm proposing a complete restructuring of our executive team, with you as chief operating officer and partner in the company. Equal voice, equal authority, equal stake in the future we build together. Anew dawned Sofia was quiet for a long moment, her eyes searching his face for any sign this was some elaborate test or cruel joke. When she spoke, her voice trembled slightly. Why are you doing this? You barely know me. I've been part of your world for 12 hours. Vincent moved closer, his expression open and honest in a way that felt unfamiliar but right. Because in those 12 hours, you showed me more about leadership, courage, and integrity than I learned in 15 years of business school and board meetings. You didn't save my company for personal gain. You did it because it was the right thing to do. That's the kind of person I want building the future with me. Sofia felt tears prick at the corners of her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. Her mother had taught her that tears were not weakness, but sometimes strength required dry eyes and steady hands. My mother used to tell me that the universe rewards genuine kindness, even when we can't see how. She said that every choice we make sends ripples through the world, and eventually those ripples come back to us. I think she would have liked you, Vincent. I think she would have been proud that her daughter found someone who values people over profit. Vincent reached out, offering his hand not as a boss to an employee, but as a partner to an equal. Let's build something she would be proud of, something that proves business success and human decency aren't mutually exclusive. 6 months later, the summer sun blazed over Chicago, turning the glass towers into pillars of golden light. On the rooftop garden of Harrington Technologies, now officially renamed Harrington Martinez Technologies, employees gathered for the company's annual celebration. The space had been transformed from a sterile executive retreat into a vibrant community area with flowering plants, comfortable seating, and an open layout that encouraged conversation rather than hierarchy. Vincent stood at the edge of the garden, watching Sofia give a presentation to a group of young programmers about ethical technology development. She wore a simple blue dress that caught the evening breeze, her hair loose around her shoulders, her smile bright and unguarded. Tidang, company had changed dramatically in 6 months. The old culture of cutthroat competition had been replaced with collaborative innovation. Employee wellness programs were expanded. Profit sharing was implemented across all levels, and most importantly, hiring practices were reformed to value diverse life experiences rather than just linear career progression. Former teachers, caregivers, military veterans, and yes, even former cleaning staff now filled positions throughout the company, bringing perspectives that enriched every project and decision. The European merger had been renegotiated on terms that prioritized worker protections and environmental responsibility, even though it meant smaller profit margins. Wall Street analysts questioned the move, but customer loyalty and employee satisfaction reached record highs. Vincent felt a presence beside him and turned to find Jennifer Wu, his chief operating officer and one of the few executives who had survived the restructuring. She smiled knowingly. "You're staring again. You know people are starting to talk." Vincent laughed. "Let them talk. I've learned that the most valuable things in life are usually the ones we don't see coming." Jennifer nodded toward Sofia. "She's good for you. Good for the company. Good for all of us." She challenged the board last week on that environmental impact report, and she was absolutely right. We needed someone willing to speak uncomfortable truths. That's what real leadership looks like. As the celebration continued, Vincent made his way through the crowd, stopping to chat with employees who 6 months ago would have been too intimidated to approach him. He learned about their families, their hobbies, their dreams beyond the office walls. When he finally reached Sofia, she was just finishing her presentation. The young programmers thanked her enthusiastically before dispersing to enjoy the food and music. "Sofia, can I steal you for a moment?" Vincent asked. Sofia's eyes sparkled with amusement. "You're the boss?" "Well, co-boss." Vincent took her hand and led her to a quiet corner of the garden where the noise of the party faded to a pleasant murmur. The sun was setting now, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple that reflected off the surrounding skyscrapers. "Sofia, these past 6 months have been the most challenging and rewarding of my life. You've pushed me to be better, to think differently, to remember that every decision we make affects real people with real lives." Vincent paused, searching for words that felt inadequate for what he wanted to express. But somewhere along the way, this stopped being just about business for me. Sofia's breath caught. "Vincent, what are you saying?" He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Inside was a ring, simple and elegant, with a single diamond that caught the fading sunlight. "I'm saying that I've fallen in love with you, not because you saved my company, but because you saved me. You reminded me how to be human, how to care, about something more than quarterly reports and stock prices. You showed me that real strength is measured in compassion, real success is measured in lives improved, and real love is measured in moments like this." Sofia's hands covered her mouth, tears finally spilling down her cheeks. Vincent knelt on one knee, his voice steady despite the emotion threatening to overwhelm him. "Sofia Martinez, will you marry me? Not as my business partner, though I hope you'll always be that too, but as my partner in life, in love, in building a future where we measure our days not in profits but in joy, not in acquisitions but in adventures, not in power but in purpose." Sofia pulled him to his feet, laughing and crying simultaneously. Yes, 1,000 times yes. Vincent slipped the ring onto her finger, and in that moment, surrounded by the city that had witnessed his fall and redemption, he kissed her. The employees who had been watching from a respectful distance erupted in applause and cheers, the future they built. Together, 1 year later, Vincent and Sofia stood in that same rooftop garden, but this time it was decorated with white flowers and flowing ribbons. Their wedding was small, intimate, attended by employees who had become friends and friends who had become family. There were no business associates invited purely for networking, no strategic seating arrangements designed to impress investors, just genuine people celebrating genuine love. As Vincent watched Sofia walk toward him in a simple white dress, her smile radiant in the golden afternoon light, he thought about the journey that had brought them here, from the darkest night of his life to the brightest day. From a man who had everything except what mattered to a man who finally understood that wealth meant nothing without someone to share it with. Sofia reached him and took his hands, her voice clear and strong as she spoke her vows. "I promise to challenge you when you're wrong, support you when you're right, and love you always, regardless of success or failure, riches or ruin. Because I learned from my mother that life is not about the heights we reach, but about the hands we hold while climbing," Vincent replied, his voice thick with emotion. "I promise to value people over profit, compassion over control, and your wisdom over my ego. Because you taught me that true strength is not in building empires, but in building a life worth living." The officiant pronounced them married, and as they kissed, Chicago seemed to glow brighter, as if the city itself was celebrating the union of two people who had found each other in the most unexpected way. Epilogue. The Ripple Effect 5 years. Past. Harrington Martinez Technologies became known not just as a successful company, but as a model for ethical business practices. The story of how a billionaire CEO and a cleaning lady transformed an empire spread through business schools, inspiring a new generation of leaders to value character over credentials. Sofia's mother's words proved true. Kindness did create ripples that returned transformed into waves of change. The company established a foundation providing scholarships for people re-entering the workforce after life disruptions. Former caregivers, individuals recovering from illness, parents returning after raising children, all found opportunities where their life experiences were valued rather than dismissed. Vincent and Sofia had 2 children, a daughter named Grace and a son named Michael. They raised them not in a mansion of isolation, but in a home filled with laughter, friends from all walks of life, and the understanding that privilege carried responsibility. On quiet evenings, Vincent would hold Sofia close and whisper thank you for the 1,000th time. And Sofia would smile, resting her head against his chest, listening to the heartbeat of the man who had learned that the greatest riches in life could not be measured in dollars but in moments, in connections, in the transformative power of love that rose from the ashes of what was to build something better than anyone imagined possible. The skyscrapers of Chicago still glowed against the night sky, but now when Vincent looked at them, he did not see towers of power and ambition. He saw homes filled with families, offices where people found purpose, and endless possibilities for those brave enough to believe that even in the darkest night, salvation could arrive wearing the most unexpected disguise. And somewhere in that vast city, another person was making a choice to show kindness to a stranger, creating ripples that would one day return as waves, transforming riches into purpose, ruin into redemption, and 2 separate lives into one extraordinary love story that proved the most valuable things in life could never be bought, only earned through courage, integrity, and the willingness to see worth where others saw only invisibility.